Welcome back to Kings of Columbus here at Big Ten Media Days. Doug Lesmerises and Bill Landis. We're sitting on the field at Lucas Oil Stadium, but if you guys watch podcast daily, they know we're on the field, right?
They've
It's
seen
not
it.
that big
The
of a deal.
weird field at Lucas Stadium.
You
Lucas Oil
are
Stadium.
you are quite agitated about this situation because you thought the field was screwed up by the U.S. swimming trials. You found out, no, this is the new field, and you do not like it.
It looks terrible. So it's a turf field in place of like the normal black rubber pellets that you see. They have a mixture of cork and coconut husk, is what we were told. So it's like brown. It looks like dirt. And maybe I have never seen a turf field like this. Perhaps I'm assuming that aside from being eco-friendly, maybe it's a little better. Maybe mimics grass a little more, but it looks like crap. And I thought it was turf that was about to get torn down.
Yeah,
torn up, and they're like, no, this is the new turf we just put in 2 weeks ago. So I am now on alert for the first time the Colts play like a preseason game in here for it to become a major national news story that everyone's uniforms turn brown because our shoes are brown from walking around here.
Yeah. One of the players we were talking to is like, man, like everyone's like white.
Yeah, he said if
shoes
guys are wearing like white spats on their cleats, like their cleats going to be brown.
Yeah. People are worried about it. It's kind of the big story coming out of Big Ten Media Days. All right, we want to talk about Ohio State. We also would direct you to our Kings of the North channel. If you watch Kings of Columbus and you like it, then give Kings of the North a try. We're talking to people. We had a Ryan Day interview there. We're going to have a Ross Bjork interview that we're going to put on the Kings of the North channel on YouTube. We did a half an hour interview with the Ohio State AD that it was pretty interesting, I thought. So a lot of different things came up, so we would direct you to that. But we want to talk about Ohio State football here. And in going back and listening to some of the things that some of the Ohio State players said, Bill, over the course of their interviews on Tuesday, one of the things that jumped out to me was Denzel Burke saying a lot of guys in the building fear BIA, which is their name for the secondary.
Yes.
We want to get in guys' heads and under their skin. That's their teammates. So I think everybody remembers 2 years ago, Jim Knowles' first season at Ohio State, when he was talking about the idea that he thought in practice they got to a point where the Ohio State offense was so good that the offense would – I'm cleaning up the coconut. I don't want to look at that dirty coconut.
Our producer, Mike, said he was going to try to eat it.
Really? Flavorful. I love coconut chip ice cream. I think I would like to lick this field.
They also have coconut water in the media workroom. Now I'm wondering if it's all part of a coconut conspiracy.
If we poured that coconut water on this coconut field, could we? Jonathan Taylor just ran into a coconut tree that has sprouted. Jim Knowles said in his first year here in 2022 that the offense would sort of dominate the defense in Ohio State practices, and they almost got used to it. And it was sort of like, our offense is so good that, what are you going to do? And instead of the thing they always say about iron sharpens iron, I don't know that he felt like the great Ohio State offense made the defense better. It almost made the defense accept getting beat. Is that a fair characterization of how he thought that went?
Yeah, he seemed to suggest that the rate at which they gave up big plays that year, or maybe not so much the rate they gave up big plays, but the response to giving up big plays was not what it needed to be because they were kind of used to giving up big plays in practice.
Yeah. So when we are talking about a situation where Denzel Burke, one of the leaders of this great defense, is talking we think the guys in our building are afraid of our secondary, I'm intrigued by the idea of, I think everybody agrees that this Ohio State defense has a chance to be excellent, has a chance to be the best defense in the country. By the ratings that we use, we're going to have Brian Fremeau on the show at some point to help explain his ratings because it's all that I reference. Ohio State was the number 2 defense in the nation last year, right? I mean, they're as good as anybody.
Yeah.
Could the Ohio State defense be so good that it's a challenge for the offense to get past that in working against them every day? That it doesn't make them better. It makes them think well, I don't know, we couldn't get open today. Or Will Howard's I threw 2 picks in practice today, but man, it's our defense. It's so good. Could the reverse happen?
I suppose the dynamics do feel different to me. I don't know. Maybe do you feel less of a sense of an urgency to try to get better because you just feel like you're running to a wall all the time in practice? I'm just trying to think of how could it actually tangibly impact Ohio State's offense on the field. It makes more sense to me that perhaps a defensive back in particular we get so used to giving up big plays in practice that it just sort of happens in games. And you don't really care about it. But I do struggle to find an offensive equivalent to that because it just doesn't seem to like line up quite the same way.
Okay.
Like if Carnell Tate has a hard time getting open against Denzel Burke, well, in theory, the other cornerback that he's facing in games would probably have to be as good as Denzel Burke for him to feel similarly, right? Like I don't know that like an average Big Ten cornerback, excuse me, would make. And I'm just using players randomly. Would make Carnell Tate feel like the same way. Does that make sense? I don't know if it's a 1-to-1 comparison.
I agree, but there are some excellent defenses in the Big Ten.
Yeah, no
I
doubt.
think that's fair to say. I just had it here. Now I'm trying to look it back up again. The by those Fremo ratings, the best defenses in the country last year, Michigan was 1, Ohio State was 2, Iowa was 4, Penn State was 7, and UCLA was 9. Now UCLA is not on Ohio State's schedule, but that's currently last year's top 10 defenses. 5 of them are from teams now in the Big Ten.
Yep.
And Michigan, Iowa, and Penn State are all on the schedule. And I think other than, with Oregon, those are the 4 toughest games that Ohio State should play this year. I wonder if this question could come up in games like that, right? That it's like, okay, well, guess what? It's hard to get open against Denzel Burke, but it's also hard to get open against Sebastian Castro from Iowa or Will Johnson from Michigan, or Penn State always has one of the best secondaries in the country. AJ Harris, the Georgia transfer at Penn State. I'm really curious about what we'll see in practice, and coaches always characterize this like, well, who won the day, right? And if we get with our eyeballs or with early reports in camp, if it feels like the defense is dominating the offense, I am planting my own seed. I'm planting a coconut seed in my own mind that I will not only take that as, oh man, this Ohio State defense is going to be awesome. It will make me curious about what it means for the offense. Can I plant a curiosity seed? Because I think otherwise there might be an inclination among the media and the fan base to take reports of defensive dominance as just that. Oh man, this defense is going to be great, and maybe there'll be a second component to it.
I think it's fair. I think planting a seed of curiosity is fair. I think it'd be a good thing to ask Ryan Day about it. He was not asked really anything approaching that here at Big Ten Media Day, so that's something maybe to get into with him during camp. I think what you want to hear is like balance, right? You want to hear one day, man, the defense is great, and then the next day, offense got them back, which I thought we heard a little bit in spring actually. I think it might have been like the first week of spring, the DBs felt like they had like the best of the receivers, and then maybe the next time we had an availability, you sort of heard the flip of that, the receivers having a nice day. So I think if that's going on, that's great. I think that means you probably got a pretty good team on both sides of the ball, because we know Ohio State's defense is going to be good, right? So if the offense is having even a handful of successful days, that would be encouraging about the offense. But yeah, if it's all defense, I reasonable to be concerned about that. I think I wouldn't put it at like a 10 out of 10, but I don't think it's like all necessarily a good thing.
So the last 12 years of these Fremo rankings, do you want to guess? I think we might have had some kind of a discussion around this previously. Do you want to guess how many times the offense was ranked higher for Ohio State, or how many times the defense? Like, what was better? What was the better side of the ball, offense or defense, the last 12 years?
I would say that the defense is probably only better twice.
Yeah, it was actually 5 times, but a lot of them are a while ago. So in the Ryan Day era, the defense has been better twice, because in 2019 the defense was 2 and the offense was 3.
Yeah.
So it's like they're both awesome. 2020 the defense was 46, the offense was 4. 2021 the defense was 41, the offense was 1. 2022 the defense was 8, the offense was 3. Last year the defense was 2, the offense was 14. So if we're absolutely assuming a top 10 defense, maybe a top 5 defense. And it's not even to me about it's not about Ohio State's overall offensive ranking this year. It's their ability when it matters to move the ball when it matters against good defenses.
Yeah, I think that's right, but it's weird. It's like you got to do some like mental gymnastics, I think, because I think one might rightfully assume that going up against a great defense every day in practice would prepare you to do it in a game, but we sort of have proof on the flip that going up against a great offense every day in practice, like, kind of made Ohio State's defense worse when the time came to
Right.
do it in a game. It
Right.
doesn't quite make sense, but if we have evidence of it happening and Jim Knowles like saying that he felt that was the case, why couldn't it happen on offense? So again, I have a hard time seeing exactly how it could play out, but how could you say it's not possible?
Mike, I think the headline for this is, could the Ohio State defense be too good for the Buckeyes' own good?
Yeah, they need to get like a JV team and practice against those guys.
Which means that it's late July and it's time for real football to start, so we can stop talking about crazy things. So that was like kind of my theory of the day. I feel like we have not had. Well, have you and I talked about sort of some of the things that I heard about Will Howard at Big 12 Media Days?
Not
Have
a
we
whole
talked
lot.
about
No,
that
I know
here?
you texted some stuff. We haven't really talked about it much.
Yeah. So let's talk about that a little bit because I did. So we're at Big 10 Media Days now. I was at Big 12 Media Days, whenever that was, last week.
Beginning of July.
Yeah. The one of the things I got from that and talking to some Kansas State people, there were like two main things. The first one is that Will Howard has been in his career a good teammate in the quarterback room because he's been on both ends of this. He had a season where I think thought he was getting ready to be the starter, and then Taylor Martinez came from
Adrian Martinez.
I
know. You're not the first. You won't be the last.
Came from Nebraska because there was a Taylor Martinez at Nebraska too, but he was before Adrian Martinez. Came and in the portal and sort of took that job.
Yep.
And then I think that was actually, that was the year that he got hurt, and then Will Howard had to take over, and that's when Will Howard beat TCU in the Big 12 title game.
2022.
Right? Yeah. So he's been in a situation where he thinks it's probably his turn to start, and then it doesn't happen. And I just heard good things about the way he handled that situation.
Yeah.
And then last year at Kansas State, he's the guy, but also Avery Johnson is here as the highest rated quarterback recruit in Kansas State history. And in talking to Chris Kleiman, the Kansas State coach, he kind of said he's not sure they handled it great last year in trying to work that out. And Avery Johnson really, he really only played, he played in the bowl game after Will Howard went in the portal and stuff.
Yeah.
Will Howard was the guy, but I think they were trying to get a little bit of Avery Johnson in there.
Yeah.
But he also handled that. When I was talking, it was talking to the person I talked to about it, was they just thought Will Howard handled his business both ways, which I don't know how complicated we think this quarterback battle might be, but that all felt like very good signs to me that the guy who was brought in is going to handle his business no matter how it actually may shake out.
Yeah, I think it's a hard thing you can't quantify it, I guess, but that's a major reason why I think Ryan Day went out to get Will Howard is because of his experience throughout the sport. He's just kind of seen everything. So I think there's tremendous value in having a guy in your quarterback room who just won't get phased by anything on and off the field. We can have more conversations about the physical tools, but I think the mental makeup of Will Howard was very appealing to Ryan Day because of that.
Yeah. And so then the second part of this conversation to me is sort of my theory of the case here is that Ohio State got a quarterback previously in Justin Fields in the transfer portal because Georgia was in a certain situation with a veteran quarterback and a younger quarterback in Justin Fields, and they played Justin Fields. They sprinkled him in as a true freshman. They didn't really play him. And then when the time came to make a choice, they stuck with Jake Fromm, and they did they didn't tell Jake Fromm, too bad, it's Justin Fields' time for year two. Right. And the result was that Justin Fields went in the portal and wound up at Ohio State. Through this whole discussion, Kansas State made the decision, we're going to play Avery Johnson.
Yeah.
He's too good. He's in year two. We have to play him. That was going to be their plan this year. And so now it helped me a little bit that I'm thinking of Will Howard as Jake Fromm, which is Jake Fromm, the year he stayed at Georgia then, in 2019 when Justin Fields came to Ohio State, Jake Fromm threw 36 touchdowns and 5 picks or something. He had he had an excellent year. They lost to LSU in the SEC championship game that year. He was good. So in setting an expectation level, it's been just for me personally, because I'm old and feeble and I don't understand things. It's been a bit of a winding road in trying to understand sort of the Will Howard K-State dynamic. And maybe everybody else out there understood it already, but that just helped me a little bit, that it's not like Will Howard got chased out of town. It's like, listen, man, this is the best quarterback recruit we've ever had. If we don't play him in year 2, we're probably going to lose him. And we're Kansas State. We can't afford that.
To lose him. Yeah.
No matter who was here.
Right.
Unless it was CJ Stroud, we were probably going to like tell the veteran, we've got to go to this guy. But guess what? Okay, so everybody knows Will Howard's not Justin Fields, but he actually is a pretty good, solid veteran quarterback. And if he's anything like Jake Fromm, you can win a lot of games with that, man.
Yeah, I think Ohio State is currently constructed would take either side of that coin at quarterback. Not every year, but I think this year you can live with that. The other piece of that too is Will Howard was pondering going to the NFL. Like it wasn't the timelines kind of synced up nice to like make that less rough of a transition than it certainly could have been, to make that decision to play the younger guy and kind of tell the older guy not to go kick rocks, but like this is what we're going to do. But the fact that like Will was at a place in his life where he was like, I might go to the NFL, and then if he didn't go to the NFL, he knew he was going to have other options, USC, Ohio State, whatever it might have been.
Yeah.
So like it was kind of clean. I don't think it's probably like a 1 out of 10 times that might actually be that clean when you try to do something like that.
Yeah.
But I think it worked out well for Kansas State.
Yeah.
And I think it will work out well for Ohio State.
Yeah. I think, but we also have to understand, like, I think that he's a solid veteran who's been through the wars and has played at a high level, but he wasn't ever really a slam dunk at K-State. He kind of got it coming and going, right? It's like when he thought it was his time, they dropped the veteran on his head. Then when he thought it was his time and he was the veteran, they had like a young guy ready to take his job. And so even though he had other options, I just think context matters. And so I just think it's helpful, and we've only been talking about it for 6 months, for Ohio State fans to have like a full grasp of who Will Howard is, has been, and can be. Yeah. And it doesn't serve anybody to have outsized expectations here, which is just one of these things, again, where Will Howard got, I think, 2 votes in our preseason poll for preseason Big Ten Offensive Player of the Year. And I just don't think that's realistic. What a wonderful bonus that would be for Ohio State if he plays like that. But he's never been that. Right. He's never been somebody who's like the best player in his conference, and he's stepping up a level. The Big Ten is better than the Big 12. And so to have that expectation, to me, is sort of like, okay, like what are you basing that on? Because I think you've seen enough to know that like he's probably a little short of that. Like he's short.
Yeah, he's short of the talent level of the Ohio State quarterbacks that have won it in the past.
Yeah,
for certain. I don't think it's unreasonable to expect that he might have a jump in production compared to Kansas State because of what's around him. Now at Ohio State, but I still don't think the ceiling is. I'm definitely voting this guy preseason Big Ten Player of the Year kind of ceiling.
Right. Yeah. Whereas like Dylan Gabriel might end up as like the NCAA's all-time leading passer.
Yeah.
He's super old.
He's very old. He will. Bo Nix broke the record for most career starts, and Dylan Gabriel will break that record like halfway through this season.
Yeah. So it's pretty wild, but I think it's just been a bit of a winding road, I think, for me to settle in on my Will Howard thought process and level of expectation. Like if I'm 1 to 10ing like what I think Will Howard in general has been, is, can be, I think I'm a 7.
I think 7 is right.
But I just like, if you're at a 9 and he winds up being a 7, I think you're setting yourself up to be disappointed with solid quarterback play.
Yeah.
If you think he's a 7 and then he turns into a 9, fantastic.
Awesome.
But like, what was the quarterback play for Ohio State last year?
I would say like a 4.
And like sometimes it was an 8 and sometimes it was a 2.
I don't know if it was ever an 8. I think sometimes.
Come on.
I think sometimes
it might drive against Notre Dame, although he almost threw a pick on that drive. I know.
I think it peaked at a 7 and floored at a 9 and probably averaged around a 4, or floored at a 2 and averaged around a 4.
Okay, so that feels good. So like that's like, it was a 4. What was CJ?
29.
Remember when CJ Stroud was a quarterback and some people were like, I don't know about this guy.
Yeah, and he's going to win a Super Bowl this year. Yeah.
Okay, we'll take a quick break. We'll come back on Kings of Columbus talking more here from Indianapolis. Back on Kings of Columbus here at Big Ten Media Days. This is one of these things where this is new to me, at the very least. You've been doing this a little bit longer. We're just wrangling,
Yeah.
and we're trying to get people to come to our table and talk to us. And it's hard.
I was about to say Martin Jarman's over there, but I think he's
Yeah.
setting up to do another interview too.
Like, and then it makes you mad of like, well, I don't know why they're talking to those people. We're more interesting than them.
Yeah.
And like, it's one of those things like, I think our content is the best. But we're trying to explain our show to people and like what we are and what we're doing. And
Yeah.
so, it's like, I want to say like, I promise it'll be fun and it'll be interesting if you come over. Cause like a lot of the people who have come over like wind up walking away like, with a smile on their face.
Yeah.
But that's a hard sell. So like we have Martin Jarman, the UCLA AD, is over there. We're trying to get him. Are those Penn State guys over there?
No, I'm assuming they're UCLA guys.
Oh, might be UCLA.
Yeah.
And then Matt Rule, the Nebraska coach, is over here like fake talking on a cell phone to avoid talking to us. It's like watermelon, or whatever. Like, hey, telling his wife to like call me so I don't have to talk to these guys. But no, I think we're going to try to get him over here. But it's like, so in the meantime, you're just doing this all the time and you're staking people out and you're like hovering. I have hovered so much. It reminds me, I used to be a baseball reporter, and the Major League Baseball, the clubhouses would open 3.5 hours before a game. So you'd have a game at 7 p.m. and you'd get there at 3:30, and then you would just go stand. I stood so much when I covered Major League Baseball. Barry Bonds had like a gigantic black leather lounge chair at his locker. Everybody else like sat on like a piece of wood. and this was like during the heyday of all that stuff with Barry Bonds. And he didn't really want to talk to the media anyway, but he would not be at his big lounge chair, but you'd be like, he might come back to his lounge chair. It's like, I think he has to put his uniform on today. So I had days where I just stood by the big lounge chair for 90 minutes.
Just sit it, check and test it out.
Did I sit in Barry Bonds' lounge chair?
Yeah.
Did 25-year-old Doug, Mr. Bonds, can I ask you a question? No, I didn't sit in his lounge chair. I'm here today, am I?
Yeah.
I'm not.
That's a good point.
He didn't beat me to death with a baseball bat, so no, I didn't sit in his chair. And so this is bringing back memories for me of doing that. But then sometimes you wait. I've told this story before, but it's one of my best stories. I've been around old sports writers before who tell the same story again and again and again. And I'm officially getting to that point where it's like, oh, that's why that happens, because you're old and you can't remember if you said it before or not. And then you stop at some point accruing stories because you just get old and sit on your couch and eat Pringles. So that's not interesting. So you say all the same things from when you were young. So I was waiting by Chipper Jones's locker one day when the Braves were playing in Philadelphia, because I covered the Phillies. And then he came to his locker and I got to talk to him for a little bit. And so I said, his real name was Larry. I said, does anybody call you Larry? And he said, yeah, Greg Maddox calls me Larry. He's the only guy who calls me Larry just to bother me. And then I said, well, what do you call Greg Maddox? And he said, I call him F-face. I've told you that story before, right?
I don't think you've told me that story before. I don't like that story because it makes the 90s Braves endearing, and I hate them.
Yeah. And then my favorite musician of all time is Mike Mills, the bassist for REM, and he's from Georgia and is a huge Atlanta Braves fan. And I went to see him at a show one time in a bar, and so I staked out the bar before the show, and then I went and talked to him, and I told him that story, and he went, he calls me Larry, I call him F-face, and like made a song out of it, and I died.
Was it the greatest moment of your life?
It was the greatest moment of my life. I'm sure I've told that story on this show before. People are turning off the show. We've heard that story before. You have a take. What's your take?
My take, after listening to Ryan Day on Tuesday, is that the most impactful coaching decision that had like residual impact on Ohio State was not Nick Saban retiring. It was Jeff Hafley retiring or going to the Green Bay Packers. I think Jeff Hafley's decision to go to Green Bay, which then led to Chip Kelly coming to Ohio State, was far more important than Nick Saban retiring, which allowed Ohio State to get Julian Saint and Caleb Downs.
Because you think Chip Kelly is substantially better for Ryan Day and the Ohio State program than Bill O'Brien would have been?
I think I've arrived at that point. And it's not like we did a big show when they got Bill O'Brien about like how big of a deal it was. And it's not even me changing my mind on like what I think of Bill O'Brien. It's that Chip Kelly, I just think in the end, checks a lot more boxes for what Ohio State needs than I think Bill O'Brien would have. And a lot of that's run game centric, and there's a give and take there. Like maybe Bill O'Brien would have given you more as a quarterback developer than Chip Kelly. Chip Kelly might. I think that's maybe fair to put out there. But I don't know that like Bill O'Brien would have come to Ohio State and given Ryan Day an experienced, reliable play caller, which is what he wanted. He would have been an experienced, reliable quarterbacks coach to replace Corey Dennis, which is what Ohio State needed. But I don't know if he would have taken Ryan Day maybe to some places where Ryan Day has not always been comfortable as like an offensive mind, where I think Ohio State needs to go ultimately to win a national championship. And a lot of that is running the football, like how Ohio State runs the ball. And I think Chip will get them there. I think Chip has like kind of already gotten them there based on some of the things Ryan Day has said.
So you think that is more run game related, bringing that run game?
Yeah, it's just it's bringing the run game. It's like it's making it a more sort of like balanced, holistic, creative offensive attack. And like Ryan Day is an incredible passing game designer, obviously an incredible quarterbacks coach. I think he has blind spots when it comes to like line of scrimmage and running the football that have cost Ohio State. Or have kept Ohio State from achieving its goals the last couple of years. And I think Chip will help kind of fill in those gaps more so than Bill O'Brien did.
And how much of this is personal in the way that Bill O'Brien would have been an experienced, respected offensive mind that Ryan Day would have listened to because he's an experienced, respected offensive mind. But Chip's his guy. Chip's his mentor.
Yeah.
And an experienced, respected offensive mind. Do you think that personal relationship is maybe what was required to get Ryan Day to be open
yes,
to more changes to his offense? So it's schematic and it's about being friends, man.
It is about being friends, which is not always a good thing. As you and I have discussed, like it's you can hiring your friends too often can probably leads to more bad than it does good. I think both Bill O'Brien and Chip Kelly are the type of coaches who would not be afraid to speak their mind to Ryan Day, perhaps even in a way that comes off as like being a jerk sometimes to get their point across, to like get to do what they think is best for the offense. I don't know if Ryan Day maybe would have always listened to it if it were coming from Bill O'Brien the same way I think he's going to listen to it coming from Chip Kelly. Does that make sense? I might have said that in like a weird
No. Because of the personal.
Because of the personal connection, yes.
And by the way, and we had this conversation early on, like there's an alternate reality where Chip Kelly's Kyle Shanahan.
Mm-hmm.
Where if he doesn't kind of get in his own way as a GM in the NFL and he's just like a really successful head coach and offensive mind. And, you know, from the stories, it sounds like he might have had some shortcomings as a head coach otherwise also, but like he could have been incredibly successful as a head coach. And Martin Jarmond will appear on this show soon. He will. He's going to stop by soon and he's going to hang out because he really likes us and he's respects us. And it's a friendly relationship and a respected professional relationship where Martin Jarmond has said to me that this is his favorite. He left.
He walked away. That was good.
When in 2015, when
he's running away.
Sprinting. He's sprinting away to like a local radio show that has 4,000 listeners, but he didn't stop here. No, I'm not throwing shade at anybody. We're going to be huge. Get on the train now. In 2015, do you want to take the show to that table and just get him on right now? Like we'll invade that show. This is time. This is good. Just like Chip Kelly is there for Ryan Day in multiple ways, that he respects him and he admires him and he's a tactician, but also there's a friend thing. I respect you. I think you're a great journalist. You're a great friend, but you're also huge. So this is going to come in really handy.
Go beat up that old man over there so we can steal his radio guest.
Hey, Landis wants Martin now. In 2015, when nobody knew if JT Barrett or Cardale Jones was going to start. And it was like half an hour before the game. And it was like, can anybody find this out? I texted Martin Jarmond when he was on the sideline and was like, who's going to start? He was like, he texted back and I was like, and he was like, I don't know. So I think he owes me from that. What were we talking about? I can't even
Chip
remember.
Kelly.
So, so I think this is good for Ryan Day, and this goes all into the when we had Ryan Day on Kings of the North on our Wednesday show on Kings of the North, which I would direct everybody to. I said to Ryan Day, "Do you feel like you're ready to be the best head coach you've been yet?" And I think I could point to potentially like 10 separate reasons why I think that. I think part of it is age and experience. I think part of it is the decisions he made to make the changes he did with Parker Fleming and Corey Dennis. I think part of it is the realizations that I think he might have come to after losing 3 straight to Michigan. I think the way he clearly decided that he wasn't just going to stand pat with Kyle McCord as a quarterback. Like I feel like he's had an off season of making tough decisions after a season, maybe multiple seasons of disappointments and failures and criticisms and blowback. And when he made the tough decisions, then like the answers to those things, Will Howard's not Justin Fields, but it's a pretty decent answer. And then Julian Sand's a great answer, right? And Bill O'Brien was a good answer, and Chip Kelly might be a better answer. And like James Laurinaitis is a great answer. So because you can make tough decisions and then the guy I was going to hire isn't available. So that now I made a mediocre replacement for the smart, tough decision I made. Like I just think there's a lot of things there, and I'm not disagreeing at all with your Chip Kelly point, except I guess if you were saying like, would you rather have Chip Kelly or Caleb Downs and Julian Sand? I'd rather have Caleb Downs and Julian Sand.
Yeah, that's probably fair. That's probably fair.
But what do you think of the idea of that? Like he is now positioned maybe to do this job better than he's ever done because of some actions he took, because of some failures he absorbed, and because of some luck, frankly, that landed some other people in his lap that are going to make this program better.
Yeah, it is. Luck is an interesting piece of it. Like, I have found myself thinking a little bit, if the Bill O'Brien Boston College thing happened and Ryan Day didn't grow up in Manchester, New Hampshire, who would be Ohio State's offensive coordinator right now? Like, it would probably just be Ryan Day. I guess, right? It would just be kind of business as usual. So there's a little bit of luck involved there for sure. But I think he's changed a little bit. Or I don't even know if change is the right word. Maybe just gained a greater understanding of like everything that's asked of him, and has put plans and actions to like better answer those specific kind of calls that are necessary to answer when you're a head coach. So I think I agree that he's positioned to be the best head coach he's been. But it's a drastic change, right? Like it's the reason he got the job, or not the only reason, but the main reason he got the job was like now something he's not doing anymore. So like it'll be interesting to kind of observe him in a world where he's not the play caller. Like that's no longer like a piece of his identity. How does he kind of fill that gap? But I think he's fairly comfortable with the decision right now. We could see. I'll be curious how he comes off when the games start. Because he seemed comfortable with it last spring, and then like at the end of spring, he seemed uncomfortable with it. Like 2 springs ago, not this past spring.
Yeah. And again, I think it's not because it's like, oh well, who would his offensive coordinator have been? And it's like, would it have been Andy Koltelnicki? And I think the answer is no, because I don't know that he was ever going to hand it to a guy to hiring a college offensive coordinator from another school.
Yeah.
Because I think in his heart, he would have thought, well, I'm better at this than that guy.
Right.
Because I was so good at it in college that I got the Ohio State job out of it.
Yeah.
So there's no way that you're as good as me. But he could look at Bill O'Brien and Chip Kelly and say, you know what? I think you have been as good as me at this, at the highest level.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'll hand it over.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it do I want to compare like covering college football on a website to running a college football program? Do I want to or no?
Yeah, why not?
Okay. I felt like at Cleveland.com that like we sort of established like a way of doing things,
Mhm.
right? Like this is how we're going to go about it. This is what we're going to focus on. This is the quality and the quantity and the type of stories. We're not just going to do it like everybody else. And I had been covering the beat there by myself for a while, and then I was like, you and Ari came, and we were a 3-man team, and like I was very hands-on with a lot of stuff.
Yep.
Sort of like trying to like define or whatever, and like I think I probably was a pain in the butt and whatever, but like over time, clearly like I didn't feel like I had to be as much as, but it's because I trusted you guys. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And like if I didn't think you were good, I wouldn't have let go at all, right?
Yeah.
And so like I completely understand the idea of like I want it done a certain way. I think this is the standard, and I'm willing to let it go when I am sure that the next person will keep the standard going. But what I cannot live with and what's untenable is allowing the standard to be lowered. And I think Ryan Day, and this is not, I mean, this is just looking at what happened. He tried to give it to Brian Hartline and then they didn't give it. Well, Brian Hartline's never called plays before.
Yeah.
So that's not a shot at Brian Hartline, but he just couldn't risk it. And the stakes, I don't know. I think the stakes of like Cleveland.com versus Ohio State football are pretty equal.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, I mean, the stakes at Ohio State football are 50,000 times greater than at a website. But like, I get that. But then it also, right, it totally makes sense to me that it's Chip. I'm
Yeah.
good. I can do this now.
Who's my Chip or is Ari Chip?
No, Ari's Bill O'Brien.
I thought Ari would be Jim Knowles, and I can be Chip Kelly.
No, Ari cannot run a defense.
That's fair.
Ari's like the recruiting coordinator. Who's just who's just like, we're only Ryan Day's, hey, like Ryan Day's like, hey, Ari's, how's it going? It's like, we're only recruiting 5 stars.
Our board has 35 players on
it. There's this really good 3-star from Ohio who wants to be a Buckeye. Nope. Okay. So do you think he's positioned to be the best he's ever been?
Yeah, I do. Okay. I think so. Yes.
All right. Let's do what you watching, what you eating, what you thinking. What are you eating?
I wanted to talk about this last time, so I'm glad to have the opportunity. We were on vacation 2.5, 3 weeks ago. And my stepsister was there. She has 4 children, I think, like all under the age of like 8 little kids. So my stepmom like packed a bunch of Uncrustables for them to have at the beach. I'm 35 years old. I never had an Uncrustable before, and I had one on the beach. What a revelation!
Wow.
I've our house is full of Uncrustables now after that experience. It's like the only thing I eat. They're tremendous. And it's not even like I don't mind having the crust. I'm a grown man. I'll eat a sandwich with the crust on it. But to just be able to go into the freezer and pull out a ready-made PB&J, incredible.
So it's how cold is it when you eat it?
So they're frozen. You're supposed to let them sit on the counter to thaw for, I don't know, 4 minutes. Okay. Honestly, you let it thaw for the amount of time it takes to make a peanut butter jelly.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
But I like to eat them like quasi-frozen.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So like golfers, our producer Mike's a big golf guy. Don't golfers eat Uncrustables? They have Uncrustables in the bag. Scotty Scheffler will eat an Uncrustable. He'll crush an Uncrustable like between the 5th and 6th holes.
It's so convenient, but it's also delicious.
Do you eat it as a lunch or as a snack?
Both.
One's not enough for lunch though, right?
Yeah, you probably need 2 for a lunch. But I have also found it as like a nice substitute for like if I have like a little bit of a sweet tooth, like after dinner.
Yeah. And
rather than like pound 700 calories worth of ice cream, I'll eat an Uncrustable, which I think is like 200 calories.
Oh.
So that satisfies a sweet tooth too.
Grape jelly or strawberry jelly?
I'm grape all the way.
But they have both?
I think they have both, but I'm a grape purist.
Yeah. And this is great that now your son will not have to live the life that you did, which is to get to age 35 without eating an Uncrustable.
That's right.
Is he pounding them yet?
We share them. Well, I don't let him have a whole one because I'm eating the whole one. I let him have a bite or 2.
Yeah. Okay. So we ate this at what day is it? It's Wednesday. No, what day is it? Wednesday. So on Tuesday night we went to like a pizza beer place, and they had on the box it says like this place is like pizza or whatever. Mm-hmm. But they also have soft pretzels there. And I said it should say soft pretzels, and also we have some pizza here. So you really enjoyed the soft pretzel.
Tremendous.
Everybody seemed to enjoy the soft pretzel. It was very buttery.
Yeah.
Now, You are a soft pretzel purist. Can a pretzel be too buttery? Because like a Philadelphia soft pretzel, that's buttery is not where we're going necessarily, right?
Well, a Philadelphia soft pretzel is more like a bread, kind of, right?
With salt on it.
It's not like an Auntie Anne's pretzel. That's probably like maybe the most ubiquitous pretzel, right? I think people know what an Auntie Anne's pretzel is. This is what this place's pretzels were more like. If you're in Philly and you go to the Philadelphia soft pretzel factory, that's not at all what you're getting. What you're getting is what I prefer, which is like more of like a hard baked, like crispier, like almost like a loaf of bread pretzel. Can a pretzel be too buttery? Yeah, I think so. I've had Auntie Anne's pretzels where I feel like I was just like eating a stick of butter.
Yeah.
And like it was not an enjoyable experience.
But you didn't think this pretzel was too buttery.
I think it was perfect.
Yeah. We really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Speaking of that, I was in an Auntie Anne's a couple weeks ago, and there were probably like the Auntie Anne's was the size of a phone booth. There were probably 9 workers in there. There were 2 cash registers, and there was this Karen who was like trying to pay with a gift card, and the gift card wasn't working to buy a pretzel. So $3 pretzel. Tried to pay with the gift card. It didn't work. Everybody came out of the back and was standing around the cash register. 9 workers and this woman and her 2 teenage children. The gift card is not working, and she is not giving up on trying to use a gift card. She does not want to pay $3.50 for this soft pretzel. And I'm the only other person in there just standing there. And there's another empty cash register, and they're just all either watching this problem attempt to be solved or just staring at it. And I just like very like exaggeratedly like turned on my foot and walked out the door and like let the door slam behind me. And I didn't call like Auntie Anne headquarters or anything, but it was like, you've just lost a pretzel sale because there were 9 people trying to help this woman pay with a gift card.
Do you think you could be in that situation and be hungry enough that you would just give the woman $3 so you could get your own pretzel?
No, I think I could be in that situation and be hungry enough where I would say, let's go. And then hope that solved the problem.
Works. It's like, oh, okay.
But I'm not buying.
Yeah,
you do not get a pretzel on Doug's dime.
Yeah,
for
that's
that.
fair. That's
all
fair.
right. What are you watching?
I watched the documentary like a week and a half ago about Nickelback on Netflix.
No, was it a joke?
No, it was called like I think it was called like Hate to Love, and it was like the story of Nickelback.
Oh yeah, I've heard about that.
It was pretty good.
Really?
Yeah, like they have a far more interesting backstory than I ever imagined. I don't mind Nickelback. If I'm being perfectly honest, I'll put that out there. This is a trusted circle. But like I understand people who like don't like them because they think they're like corporate rock shills whose songs all sound the same. And like I thought that they were like actually that like a band that like some record producer put together to make like the most homogenized rock and roll sound you've ever heard. But it wasn't. Like they had to like really grind to get to where they were.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like they had like some real life problems along the way, and like during their rise and after their rise, and like dealing with they have a lot of love in Canada in particular, but worldwide they became a bit of a laughing stock and a punchline. And like they're millionaires, like I don't feel bad for them, but like it was interesting to listen to how they like received all of that.
And they know that everybody makes fun of them?
Yeah, they do. Yeah. And I don't know. I just thought it was like really well done, and they were like pretty introspective about the whole thing and like didn't take themselves too seriously.
Oh.
Yeah. So it was good. I would like whether you like their music or not, like I thought it was a good documentary.
Do you think that will be a template for the upcoming Netflix documentary on Connor Stallions?
Hate to Love Connor Stallions. Yeah.
Everyone's mean to me.
I'm fascinated to watch that, by the way. You think Jim Harbaugh talked for it?
No.
Probably not.
Do you listen? You do listen to Nickelback?
Yeah, they're like a guilty pleasure. Yeah.
And they have a football name.
They do have a football name.
It's one of those.
They're of the North too for our other show.
Because from Canada.
Yeah.
You want to get them on?
I'd love to.
All right.
Yeah.
We'll work on that. So I want to talk about what you're watching. I'm going to tell a story. So the other night, I was out with a couple of friends, and we were in Columbus, and we like walked down this dark alley. It was like a little bit weird. And when we came out of the alley, my 2 friends were gone, and it was just me. And then I went and got in my car, and I broke down crying. And that's the story.
Is that real? That actually happened?
No.
Okay.
But I'm making a point. Is that a good story?
No.
Is there like, are you like a little bit interested about like, well, what happened?
Where they go?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What happened? And then what did I do? Not tell you what
Yeah,
happened.
Right.
Why do movies do that? I watched 2 movies on a plane, both of which ended with like, well, who knows? And I know that people think this is an artistic choice. And it was like 2 foreign films that were nominated for Oscars. It was the Zone of Interest,
Mhm.
which is also called like I Live Next to a Nazi Death Camp. And so like there's a movie about that.
Yeah.
And then there's Anatomy of a Fall.
Mhm.
Was that, which it's very confusing in movie titles because sometimes fall means autumn and sometimes fall means I slipped.
Yeah.
And if you said like Legends of the Fall and Anatomy of a Fall,
Could
right?
be either. Yeah, go either way.
And Legends of the Fall is Legends of Autumn, right? It's not about
Mhm.
a guy who fell down.
Yeah.
Anatomy of Fall is about a guy who fell down.
Oh.
I thought it was about autumn.
So I would have made the same assumption.
Yeah, so it's just about a trial about someone who fell down. So I don't understand why that is artistic. Because to me, it's a story.
Mhm.
It's entertainment. It's a story, and a story has a beginning, a middle, and an end in every form since the dawn of man. And when I just told you my story and it had no ending, you were going to punch me.
Yeah. I was like, where is this going?
So why is that viewed as like, well, I guess the point of the story is that we'll never know and life is unknowable. I know that life is unknowable. I don't want entertainment to be unknowable.
Yeah.
How did we get here?
Christopher Nolan.
Oh, the top.
Yeah. That when you bring that up, like that's the first thing that I think of is how angry the end of Inception made me.
Yeah.
Yeah. But then I think it's a copycat world. People try to do the same thing because Inception was a masterpiece.
But I just think it's obnoxious.
So do I.
Because if you were at a cocktail party and someone told a story that had no ending, you'd be like,
I would do nothing but talk crap about that person for the rest of the night.
yeah. So you can watch those movies. I'm not saying don't watch the movies, but man, I don't want to guess. I'm there to turn off my brain. And I know sometimes culture and pieces of culture can like make you think or whatever. It's like it should entertain first. And it's more entertaining to know what happened.
Yeah.
So I'm very, very angry. That actually is also my what you're thinking, because I was been thinking about that a lot.
That's
how
good.
angry it makes me.
It does. I don't mind it like occasionally, but I do think you were like getting beat over the head a little bit with it. Now.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I'm there with you.
And sometimes I feel like the implication that if you had told people how it ended, like you would have been like not a true auteur.
Yeah.
So Jonathan Smith's coming. I hope he talks to us.
We
Do you have
can wrap
anything
up.
you're thinking about?
I'm thinking this turf's gonna hurt somebody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're going to grow a tree or ruin a career.
Yeah.
All right. That'll do it for Kings of Columbus. Watch our Kings of the North coverage all week. Watch all of our coverage on everything else we bring you here on the podcast. And thanks, as always, to our producer, Mike Urostowski. He's Bill Landis. I'm Doug Lesmerises. And that was Kings of the North. No, it wasn't.
It was Kings of Columbus.
Maybe Jonathan Smith will come on our show. That was Kings of Columbus.